I remember exactly what I was doing when it hit me. It was a Thursday night. I had just reheated some leftover curry, her favorite, the one with too much coconut milk and those tiny green things she claimed were baby herbs. I'd poured her usual glass of red, not because I expected her to walk in any minute, but because I always poured it first. Routine, you know. I sat down, turned on the TV, waited. By the time the rice started to dry out, I finally picked up my phone. 5 missed calls to voicemail. Her location was suddenly unavailable. Not paused, not low battery, just gone. Digital void. I went upstairs. Her closet was empty. The drawer where she kept all her random charger cables and expired lip gloss was cleaned out. The kind of clean only someone planning it could manage. It was as if Lena had been erased. Intentionally. Not violently. No broken vases or scrawled, "I hate you" on the bathroom mirror. Just a silence that had been curated. And yet, there was one thing she left. My hoodie. The gray one she always stole. Still folded on the couch, as if to say, "You keep this, I'm keeping the rest." I paced the hallway for what must have been an hour. There's something about walking back and forth that makes you feel like you're solving something, even when you're not. My mind made up 100 scenarios. Maybe her mom was sick. Maybe she'd been kidnapped. Maybe this was just a phase, some kind of stress tantrum like emotional flatulence. But even in that state of confusion, I noticed a strange calm. It felt like standing on train tracks long after the train had passed, still waiting for the rumble. And then it hit me. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't a breakdown. This was a decision. People love to think they'll know when a relationship is ending. Like there'll be fireworks, shouting, an affair caught on camera, dramatic exits with luggage flying down staircases. But most endings? They're like this. Quiet, deliberate, almost polite. She left behind no mess, because the mess was me. I sat on the stairs for a while, just breathing. The kind of breathing that doesn't feel like it belongs to you anymore. It's like the air in your lungs belongs to someone who got to say goodbye, and you're just borrowing it. A small part of me wanted to call her friends, but I didn't want to seem like that guy, the clingy one, the unstable one. So I sent her a message. "Hey, you okay? Just checking. No pressure." Yes. I really typed "no pressure," like it wasn't the most pressurized sentence I'd ever sent in my life. She never responded. That night I couldn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling fan for hours, listening to the same blade make a soft clicking sound every rotation. It had done that for months, but Lena always said it was comforting. Now it sounded like judgment. I think there's a special kind of ego that comes with being ghosted after years. Not weeks, not a few awkward dates, but years. It makes you question your own reality. Like, was she real? Were we real? That night, I had a dream. One of those dreams that slips into your bones. In it, I was walking through a grocery store, and everyone had Lena's face. Even the kids, even the cashier, and they all kept whispering, "You missed it." What had I missed? It wouldn't be until much later that I realized the answer wasn't a what, it was a when. Here's a fun little side fact. Did you know octopuses, when extremely stressed, sometimes eat their own arms? Yeah, that's what my brain felt like that night. Feeding on itself, trying to make sense of a world that had suddenly made no sense. And yet, the fridge still hummed. The light still turned on. The universe didn't pause, just because she had. Maybe that's the cruelest part of being left like this. The world forgets you're grieving someone who's still alive. I found myself doing dumb things, like checking her Spotify activity. Her last played song was a sad indie track we both hated. I listened to it on loop for 2 hours, like decoding a message she never meant to send. And somewhere around 4 a.m., I whispered out loud, to no one, "Was I that easy to leave?" The question hung in the air, mocking, heavy, but mostly unanswered. I used to think love meant noticing the little things, like how she always curled her toes when she was anxious, or how she hated the word moist, but still used it when baking. You know, trivia that feels like intimacy. But now I wonder how many things I didn't notice. Because looking back, Lena had been leaving long before she left. She used to hum when cooking. At some point, she stopped. We used to have pillow check-ins before bed, where we'd ask each other one hard question and one fun one. I think we stopped those after she got that new job. Or maybe I just stopped asking. It's strange how distance doesn't always come from arguments or betrayal. Sometimes it creeps in through silence, convenience, and a whole lot of, "Not now, I'm tired." When people ask how we were as a couple, I always say, "We were fine." Fine. That deceptive wallpaper word people use to cover cracks. We took weekend trips, had dinner parties, made fun of influencers on Instagram together. It all felt normal. But somewhere along the way, Lena stopped correcting me when I misremembered stories. She used to tease me. Playful, flirty pushback. Then, one day, I said we met on a rainy Tuesday. She just nodded, even though it was a Friday. Sunny. I remember because her dress had sunflowers. It's funny what you hold on to. I used to work late on Tuesdays. One night I came home and she was already asleep. No kiss, no how was work, just her, cocooned under our weighted blanket, as if it were a shield. The next morning she apologized. For nothing in particular, she said, "I've been a little off lately." I kissed her forehead and said, "It's okay. We're okay." We were not okay. There's this thing I once read. People don't just leave. They rehearse their exits every time they feel unheard. That hit differently after Lena disappeared. Because looking back, there were so many rehearsals. The way she started volunteering for weekend shifts. How she'd go to the bookstore alone, saying she just needed quiet. The sudden privacy with her phone. Though, honestly, I never suspected cheating. That would have been easier. Instead, it felt like I was becoming unshared. Like she was slowly packing away pieces of herself in a mental suitcase, long before the physical ones moved. Here's your fun psychological tidbit for this section. Did you know that in couples counseling, therapists often say the most dangerous word in a relationship isn't hate or cheat, but whatever? That word slipped into our conversations like a leak under a door. I'd suggest a movie, whatever. Ask what she wanted for dinner, whatever. Bring up the idea of moving, whatever works. It wasn't apathy. It was emotional exhaustion. But I mistook it for chill, for maturity, because I'm a fixer, and fixers often don't notice when the other person stops handing them things to fix. One night, I found her crying in the bathroom. She said it was just hormones. I offered tea. She declined. We never spoke of it again. That was the night I think she decided. Not out loud, not with a grand speech or ultimatum, but somewhere in the silence between the tea kettle and the locked bathroom door, something ended. And I missed it. I used to joke that she was the more dramatic one. She'd laugh and say, "Well, you're the stable one." Funny how stable becomes emotionally unavailable in hindsight. I thought I was giving her space. What I was giving her was permission to fade. Here's your elder wisdom moment. My grandfather once told me, "People will show you they're leaving long before they tell you." He said this while feeding pigeons, which somehow made it more profound. I didn't understand then, but I do now. Because love doesn't end with a door slamming or a big blowout fight. Sometimes it ends with a dinner that goes uneaten, a story that's not corrected, a hug that feels routine. And yet, I kept showing up, kept kissing her cheek, kept asking, "You okay?" Even when I knew the answer was no. Because we don't always want the truth. We want familiarity, even if that familiarity is rotting underneath. Here's something weird. There was a phase where she started listening to true crime podcasts, obsessively. I once asked why. She said, "Because it reminds me that things could be worse." I laughed. But now, I wonder if she was talking about us. I don't say this to paint her as cruel. Lena is many things. Cruel isn't one of them. But I think she thought I'd be better off if she just disappeared. A clean break. A mercy. Like a cat running off into the woods to die alone. Except I wasn't ready to grieve something that hadn't officially ended. The thing no one tells you about ghosting is this. It's not just that they're gone. It's that you don't know how long they were planning it. Every moment you thought was shared might have already belonged to goodbye. They say love ends not with a bang, but with a slow, quiet fading. Like lights dimming in a room you didn't know you were still sitting in. I didn't see it then, but Lena had been dimming her light for months. Not because she didn't care, but because she was tired of trying to glow alone. There's a concept in psychology that always stuck with me. Attachment starvation. It's when you're technically with someone, but emotionally malnourished. You look fed, housed, partnered, but inside, you're bone hollow. That's what I think happened to Lena. She became invisible in the spotlight of our day-to-day. And the worst part? I thought we were thriving. It's easier to spot what someone is doing to you than what you're doing to someone. We've all ghosted someone at some point, right? Ignored a text, left a DM on read, let a message sit for days until it fossilized under guilt. But those are casual sins, like stealing gum or pretending to know about wine. What Lena did wasn't that. This was a complete deletion. 3 years. Gone. No warning. No explanation. No, "Hey, I'm not okay." Just off the grid. I told myself stories, because humans crave narrative, even in absence. Maybe she was protecting me from her breakdown. Maybe she joined a silent monastery. Maybe she was abducted by very polite aliens. But here's where it gets uncomfortable. What if ghosting was her way of screaming? Academic circles argue whether ghosting is abuse or avoidance. It's the psychological equivalent of hanging up mid-conversation, except the call never reconnects. Some experts claim it's a trauma response, Fight, flight, freeze. And now, ghost. Others say it's emotional cowardice, a refusal to face discomfort. But what if it's both? Maybe Lena felt unsafe in confrontation. Maybe she believed her absence would speak louder than her words. It did. It screamed. I remember this moment in therapy. Yes, I went. Don't clap. It was court-ordered by my own spiraling. My therapist, Dr. Nina, wore statement earrings shaped like moons. She once said, "Ghosting isn't silence. It's curated absence. It's a message delivered without words." That haunted me, because silence gives you space to fill with your own worst thoughts, and I had a buffet of them. Was I too much? Not enough? Did she ever really love me, or did she just settle until something inside her snapped? Here's your weird fact of the night. Sea cucumbers defend themselves by ejecting their own organs out of their butts. Now imagine that being your emotional defense strategy. That's how it felt, like my inner self had been forcibly turned inside out, messy and exposed, with no one left to clean it up. I tried to track her. Don't judge. When someone leaves like that, you either go detective or go numb. She changed her number, unfollowed me on every platform, blocked my email. I created a throwaway Gmail just to send her a blank subject line. It didn't bounce back, so I knew she saw it. But no reply. Friends asked why I wasn't angrier. But anger requires a target. Ghosting denies you that. You can't yell at a wall for being a wall. You just sit with the echo. One night I found her scarf behind the couch. It smelled like her shampoo, jasmine and regret. I wrapped it around my wrist for a week like some kind of grief bracelet. Pathetic? Maybe. But grief doesn't care about dignity. It just wants somewhere to sit. I had this recurring thought. If I ran into her at a coffee shop, what would I say? Would I smile? Ask, "How have you been?" Or would I stare, wordless, while a flood of unsent messages crashed behind my eyes? In one version of the fantasy, I get closure. She cries. I forgive her. We part as evolved adults. In another, I leave first. That one feels better. Let's get philosophical for a second. What is worse, the pain of being told it's over, or the pain of never being told? Some say ghosting is a mercy, that it spares you from awkward conversations and false hope. But I think it's selfish grace. Closure for one, confusion for the other. An old mentor of mine used to say, "Closure is a myth sold by people who can afford it." He also believed in Bigfoot and once tried to marry a tarot reader in Costa Rica, so take that with a grain of Himalayan salt. Still, he had a point. Some stories don't have conclusions, just endings. Here's the hardest part no one talks about. Ghosting feels like being left on pause forever. No resolution, no confirmation. Just you, stuck mid-sentence, waiting for a reply that won't come. It messes with your memory. It makes you rewrite every happy moment like a red ink editor. Was that smile fake? Did she mean that kiss? Was our love just a performance, and I was the only one who didn't know I was on stage? I didn't deserve a parade. Or even an explanation, maybe. But I did deserve something. A final sentence. A full stop. Instead, I got ellipses. It's been months now, and I still hear her footsteps in the hallway some nights. Phantom sounds, echoes left behind in the shape of absence. Ghosting is cruel in its simplicity. It doesn't yell. It doesn't slam doors. It just unplugs. And so I began to wonder, was Lena's exit an act of self-defense, or was it her final punishment? Let me tell you something uncomfortably honest. I've replayed every argument we ever had like an over-anxious sports coach reviewing game tape, trying to spot the moment I lost the match. There was the time I criticized her cooking, not realizing she'd tried to replicate her grandmother's recipe. The night I didn't answer her, "Are you happy?" with enough enthusiasm. The birthday I forgot, not the date, but the way she liked her pancakes shaped like hearts. I didn't cheat, I didn't hit, I didn't scream, but I didn't listen either. You know what hurts more than being ghosted? Realizing someone had been preparing to ghost you, emotionally and logistically. There's a behavioral concept in psychology called premeditated detachment. It's when a person slowly disconnects from you while still maintaining the appearance of intimacy. They go through the motions, smile at dinner, laugh at your jokes, make plans they don't intend to keep. It's not deception in the usual sense. It's emotional ghostwriting. I once found a to-do list in Lena's planner after she left. Among mundane entries like pick up almond milk and call mom. One line was chilling in its mundanity. Figure out how to tell him. She never did. Maybe she couldn't. Maybe she thought telling me would pull her back in, and she wasn't sure she could survive another round of pretending. My therapist, Dr. Nina, asked me one day, "Do you think she was afraid of you?" I blinked. What? No, never. But then she clarified, not afraid you'd hurt her, afraid you'd talk her out of leaving. That hit like cold soup to the face, because I probably would have. Said all the right things, made big promises, got temporarily better at remembering anniversaries. That's the problem with words. I was great at them. Lena needed action. I gave performance. Here's a slightly ridiculous but entirely real psychological tidbit. In 1994, researchers tested whether rats could get depressed from social rejection. Turns out, if you isolate a rat from its colony, it becomes lethargic, eats less, and eventually loses interest in reproduction. I was that rat, minus the tail, plus way more screen time. After the initial shock faded, my mind shifted from mourning to questioning. Was ghosting Lena's only option? Maybe she feared confrontation. Maybe she thought I'd twist her words, make her feel guilty. Maybe she believed the cleanest break would be no break at all, just a dissolve. But maybe, just maybe, she wanted to hurt me. That's the uncomfortable part. Because ghosting can be a cry for help, or it can be a middle finger in a velvet glove. One night, I got a voicemail, 3 weeks after she vanished. I didn't recognize the number. No caller ID, just a 15-second clip. Hey, I know this isn't enough, but I couldn't say goodbye. I hope one day you understand. Take care. That's it. No, I'm sorry. No, I loved you. Just take care. What does that even mean? I replayed it so many times that my phone started suggesting it in my favorites. Eventually, I deleted it, and then immediately regretted deleting it. Because when someone ghosts you, even crumbs feel like a feast. Let me give you tonight's elder wisdom moment. My Aunt Sylvia once said, while shuffling tarot cards and sipping vodka, "People leave you how they feel about themselves." Back then, I rolled my eyes. Now, I think she was onto something. Because Lena didn't just leave me. She fled from the version of herself that existed when she was with me. Maybe I reminded her of everything she tried to outgrow. Maybe I wasn't the villain in her story, just the narrator she got tired of listening to. Here's the irony. Ghosting doesn't end the story. It just rewrites it without your consent. You're left holding plot holes, searching for chapters that never got written. Some nights I still draft fake letters in my head. Dear Lena, I forgive you for leaving. I don't forgive you for not explaining why. But even that feels hollow. Because forgiveness isn't about the other person. It's about cleaning out your own closet so you can finally hang something new. And right now, mine's still empty. You'd be surprised how loud silence gets when it's not interrupted by love. I kept messaging her for a while. Nothing dramatic. No long rants or paragraphs dripping with desperation. Just little things. Quiet things. Hey, saw your favorite candle was back in stock. You'd love this movie. Your plant is still alive somehow. Miracles happen. None of them were red. No blue ticks, no scene. Just digital notes in bottles, floating toward an island I was no longer sure existed. I told myself I was doing it for closure, but really, I was doing it for control. Because silence felt like punishment, and I wanted to prove I was still worthy of a reply. You know what people don't prepare you for? How many things in your life are connected to someone who no longer responds to your existence? The grocery list? Half of it was hers. The Netflix profile labeled Lena, still auto-logged in. The extra charger in my bag? Hers. Even the rhythm of my evenings, the dumb TikTok recipes I showed her, the sarcastic comments during cooking shows, were built for two. Ghosting doesn't just remove a person, it removes a rhythm. Here's your academic bite for the night. Psychologists call it ambiguous loss, a kind of grief without closure, where the person is gone but not dead, and you're stuck in limbo. It's the same emotional limbo children of missing persons often report. Except my missing person had a new haircut and probably a Pinterest board about healing. At some point, I tried writing her a letter, a real one, pen and paper. It started poetic, something about shadows and sound, then turned bitter, then apologetic, then confused. I never sent it. It ended with just two words. Why silence? Not why leave. Not why lie. Just why silence? Because that's what broke me. Not the leaving, the vacuum. There's this old quote I once heard in a podcast. You cannot make someone speak who is committed to not hearing you. That one stung more than it should have, because I realized I hadn't been sending messages to her. I was shouting into the version of her that lived in my head, the Lena who would respond, the Lena who used to. But the real Lena, she was done playing that role. Here's a weird side note. Did you know flamingos can die from loneliness? Put one in isolation long enough and their feathers start to pale. Their bodies literally fade without connection. That's how I felt. Not dying, not even depressed exactly. Just fading. People noticed. Friends said I was quieter. I laughed less, ate more cereal. No one knew I was still waiting for a message. Then, one night, this was maybe week 6, I got drunk on cheap bourbon and posted a vague quote on Instagram. Some absences are louder than presence ever was. Classic breakup move, I know. I didn't tag her. Didn't even use a sad song. But 2 hours later, a mutual friend liked it. I saw the notification and immediately spiraled into speculation. Did they show her? Did she ask about me? Was that like a message? This is what ghosting does. It trains you to dissect breadcrumbs like they're Shakespeare. Eventually, I stopped texting. Not because I was healed, because I was tired. Tired of refreshing inboxes. Tired of hoping. Tired of being the only one still standing in a room we both built. I had a dream. Again. But this one was different. In it, I was packing a suitcase. Not hers. Mine. And in the dream, she walked in. Not to stop me, not to speak. Just to watch. I asked, "Do you want to say anything?" She smiled. Soft, kind, almost relieved, and said, "I already did." I woke up in tears. Here's tonight's elder wisdom. My uncle, who's been divorced 3 times, once told me, "Some people don't leave to hurt you. They leave to save themselves from what they become around you." That stuck. Because maybe Lena didn't hate me. Maybe she hated who she had to become to keep the peace, and leaving was her way of choosing herself. Finally. I still don't know what I would say to her if I saw her again. Maybe nothing. Maybe everything. But I do know this. I've stopped writing the end of our story in my head, because it's not mine to finish. We tell ourselves we need closure. That final sentence. That satisfying "here's why." But closure is a luxury disguised as a need. The truth, we don't want closure. We want to feel in control of how something ends. We want the final scene to play out with us standing tall, nodding in understanding, delivering some profound last line like a protagonist in a Netflix drama. But real life isn't scripted. And when Lena left, she didn't hand me a script. She handed me silence. Closure isn't just about answers. It's about validation. We want to know that we mattered, that the years weren't wasted, that someone else saw our side, even if they no longer stand on it. But silence doesn't validate. It lets you draw your own messy map, and most of us draw loops. If I had just, maybe she meant, what if I had asked that one more question? It's a dangerous game, one where you're both player and referee, and somehow still lose. Let me share something a little ridiculous but surprisingly deep. There's a bird, the lyrebird, that can mimic any sound it hears. Chainsaws, car alarms, even other birds. Scientists once observed one mimicking the sound of silence. No joke. By sitting completely still, blending into its surroundings to avoid predators. That's what I felt like I was doing after she left. Camouflaging, mimicking normalcy. But every time someone asked, "How have you been?" I'd say, "Good," in a pitch-perfect impersonation of someone who wasn't crumbling. I tried dating. Swipe here, match there. Went on 2 awkward coffee runs and 1 dinner where I kept comparing the girl's laugh to Lena's. It was softer, less unfiltered. I hated myself for noticing. The girl never texted back. Can't blame her. I brought the emotional ghost of my ex to dinner and didn't even pay for dessert. There's a theory, narrative completion bias, that says our brains crave endings so badly, we'll invent them if none exist. That's how conspiracy theories are born. And bad romance novels. And, apparently, the entire way I processed Lena's departure. I imagined every possible reason. Invented 3 fake versions of her, each with a different motive. The broken one. The coward. the survivor. None of them helped, because none of them were real. I stopped checking her socials, not because I didn't care anymore, but because she made everything private. That weirdly helped. It forced me to let go of the illusion that this was a pause rather than a stop. It reminded me that she was rebuilding her life without me in it. There's this moment I remember like a movie frame. Standing in the shower, water too hot, forehead against tile, and whispering, "You don't get to narrate my grief." I was talking to no one. Maybe to her, maybe to myself. But it marked a shift. Because for the first time, I wasn't trying to decode her silence. I was just letting it be silent. Here's your strange fact of the night. In Iceland, there's a tradition of writing breakup letters and then burning them in volcanic hot springs to release the energy. It's part drama, part therapy, part tourism gimmick, but it inspired me. I wrote Lena a letter, not to send, not even to keep. I tore it up, piece by piece, let the paper drift down the river near my apartment. It felt theatrical, but it also felt final. Here's my old man on a porch wisdom moment. Closure isn't a door someone else closes for you. It's the moment you stop pacing in front of it. You don't need them to return the key. You just stop trying to unlock the same door every night. I think we overestimate the power of answers. If Lena had given me a list of grievances, of reasons, of regrets, would it really have helped? Or would I have picked it apart, looking for inconsistencies? We want closure to feel better, but sometimes it just gives us new material to obsess over. Silence, as brutal as it is, doesn't argue back. It forces you to sit with your own reflection. One day, weeks later, I stood in front of my mirror and asked myself out loud, if she did explain, would I even believe her? And I realized, maybe not, because the truth I wanted wasn't hers. It was the one where she missed me, regretted me, still loved me, and anything less than that would have just hurt differently. So I let go, not all at once, not like in movies, but slowly, like someone peeling off a wet shirt. Sticky, awkward, necessary. There was no big moment when I got over her. No party, no fireworks, no cinematic monologue into a rainstorm. Just a morning where I made coffee and realized I hadn't thought of her name in 3 whole hours. That was it. Healing doesn't come in fanfare. It arrives like fog lifting, slow, quiet, and only noticeable in hindsight. I started reclaiming the spaces she used to fill. Her side of the bed became the side I sprawled across. The Spotify playlists we made together got deleted, then recreated, renamed, this time with me in mind. I bought new curtains, different scent, different color. It sounds stupid, but they helped. Because healing sometimes looks like linen in a shade you never would have picked when you were us. Here's a quirky little fact I love. Sloths can hold their breath longer than dolphins. That's not particularly useful, but it's a reminder that slow doesn't mean weak. I was slow to move on. Painfully, embarrassingly slow. But I was still breathing. And eventually, I started breathing for myself again. There's a phase people rarely talk about after heartbreak, the rebuilding. Not rebuilding your love life, but your self-concept. Because when someone ghosts you, they don't just leave. You lose the version of yourself that only existed around them. Lena saw parts of me no one else had. Jokes that didn't land with anyone else. Thoughts I hadn't dared speak aloud before her. Losing her felt like losing my mirror. But over time, I realized something crucial. I'm not just what someone else reflects. I exist, even unmirrored. I got better at being alone. Not just tolerating it, actually enjoying it. Cafes became peaceful instead of pitiful. Evenings alone felt earned rather than sentenced. And the silence? It finally stopped screaming. It whispered instead. Things like, "You're okay," and sometimes, "You're actually kind of funny." One rainy afternoon, I saw a woman at the bookstore. She had Lena's haircut, Lena's boots, Lena's energy. My heart did that stupid skip thing. She looked up, and it wasn't her. Relief. No longing, no pain. Just relief. That was the day I knew. Here's your final academic twist for the night. There's a psychological principle called post-traumatic growth. It's when people don't just recover from pain, they evolve from it. They become more self-aware, more empathetic, more real. And I'd like to think that's what happened to me. I don't hate Lena. I don't resent her. I don't even wish her back. What I do wish is that she's doing better too. There's something bittersweet about realizing someone changed you forever, and yet you'll never speak again. But life is full of that. Teachers who retire, friends who drift, lovers who disappear. And each time, we learn to carry something forward while letting go of the rest. I still don't have answers, but I have peace. And maybe that's enough. I whisper her name now sometimes, not to summon, but to release. Lena. There. Gone. Okay. And now, as you sit there, lights off, fan humming, your own mind quietly tumbling, I want you to remember something. Ghosting says more about someone's capacity to face discomfort than it does about your worth. You are not disposable. You are not forgettable. You were never nothing. You were just the chapter they didn't know how to finish, and that's on them.